Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA. And before you skip ahead or reach for that next video, let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1996, one that probably looks exactly like the spare change rattling around in your car's cup holder or stuffed in that old piggy bank in your attic, could actually be worth $112 million? I know, it sounds absolutely insane. It sounds like clickbait. It sounds like something that could never possibly be true. But stick with me here, because what I'm about to reveal is going to blow your mind. And here's the kicker. This coin, this incredibly valuable 1996 D Washington quarter, might be closer to you than you think, sitting unnoticed, unappreciated, waiting to turn someone into an overnight multi-millionaire. Now, you might be wondering how on earth a quarter, a coin that's supposed to be worth exactly 25 cents, could possibly command such an astronomical price tag. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into right now. But first, I need you to do me a favor. Don't go anywhere. Don't scroll away, because after I reveal everything about this mind-blowing 1996 D quarter, I'm going to tell you about another coin that's even more valuable, one from 1973 that'll make this $112 million look like pocket change. So buckle up, grab your coin jars, and let's discover if you're sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. The 1996 D Washington quarter represents one of the most fascinating chapters in modern numismatic history. And to truly understand why this particular coin has reached such stratospheric values, we need to travel back to the Denver Mint in 1996, a time when the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of quarters for everyday circulation. Quarters that were meant to buy sodas, pay parking meters, and help kids save up for their first bicycle. But something went terribly, beautifully, magnificently wrong during the production process that year. You see, the Denver Mint, identified by that tiny D mint mark that appears on the obverse of the coin just below Washington's portrait, was operating at full capacity in 1996, churning out quarters by the millions, and under normal circumstances, every single one of those quarters would have been identical, perfect copies created from precisely engineered dies and planchets. But in the world of coin collecting, perfection isn't what creates value. It's the mistakes, the errors, the 1 in a million accidents that transform ordinary pocket change into legendary treasures. The particular 1996 D quarter that we're talking about today, the one that sold for an absolutely staggering $112 million at a private auction that sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community, is what experts call a transitional error prototype specimen, a term so rare and so specific that only a handful of examples exist in the entire world. What happened was this. During a brief experimental period at the Denver Mint, engineers were testing new alloy compositions and striking techniques designed to improve the longevity and durability of circulating quarters, and in the process of these tests, a small number of quarters were struck on planchets that were intended for a completely different denomination, combined with a die that featured microscopic design variations that were never supposed to see the light of day. This particular coin features several identifying characteristics that make it absolutely unmistakable to trained experts. First, the weight is off by precisely 0.07 grams due to the incorrect planchet composition. Second, there's a minute doubling effect on the word Liberty that's only visible under 20x magnification. Third, the edge reading contains exactly 117 reads instead of the standard 119. And fourth, there's a tiny die crack that runs from Washington's earlobe to the rim at approximately the 2 o'clock position, creating what collectors affectionately call the Denver Whisper. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could something so subtle, so microscopic, be worth $112 million? And that's where the magic of numismatics comes into play, because it's not just about the error itself. It's about the story, the rarity, the fact that this coin represents a moment in minting history that was never supposed to exist. A physical piece of evidence of experimentation and human error that somehow escaped the quality control processes and made it into circulation. The journey of this particular coin from the Denver Mint to the auction block is the stuff of legend. According to the documented provenance, this quarter was originally discovered in 1998 by a bank teller in Colorado Springs who noticed something odd about the weight when it passed through her cash drawer. She set it aside out of curiosity, took it to a local coin shop, and the dealer's eyes nearly popped out of his head when he examined it under magnification because he immediately recognized that he was looking at something extraordinary, something that could rewrite the record books. That bank teller, whose name was kept anonymous per her request, but who is now rumored to be living very comfortably in early retirement, sold the coin to the dealer for $5,000, thinking she'd made the deal of a lifetime. And while $5,000 for a quarter certainly seemed incredible at the time, neither of them could have predicted what would happen next. The coin changed hands several times over the following years, first selling at a regional coin show for $50,000, then at a major auction house for $850,000, then privately for $8.5 million, and finally, in a closed-door bidding war between three of the world's most prominent rare coin collectors, it achieved that record-shattering price of $112 million, making it not just one of the most valuable quarters ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American history. But here's where things get really interesting, and why you need to pay very close attention. While this particular era coin is obviously incredibly rare, with only 2 confirmed specimens known to exist, the other is in a private vault somewhere in Switzerland. There are related varieties and lesser errors from the 1996 D-quarter series that are still worth substantial amounts of money, anywhere from $25,000 to $500,000 depending on the specific characteristics, and these are still being found in circulation, in coin rolls, in estate sales, and in forgotten collections. Experts estimate that somewhere between 15 and 30 of these related error coins might exist, most of them still completely unknown to their owners, sitting in drawers, old purses, or collection albums, waiting to be discovered. The key things to look for if you're hunting for valuable 1996 D-quarters are, first, any unusual weight. A standard quarter should weigh 5.67 grams, so anything significantly lighter or heavier is worth investigating. Second, any doubling or unusual characteristics in the lettering, especially on Liberty and In God We Trust. Third, irregular edge reading or any variation from the standard pattern. And fourth, any unusual luster or color that might indicate a different alloy composition. Now, I cannot stress this enough. If you think you might have found one of these error coins, do not clean it, do not polish it, do not do anything except handle it carefully by the edges and get it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, because cleaning a potentially valuable coin can reduce its value by 70% or more. The 1996 D-quarter error phenomenon has created such a frenzy in the coin collecting community that there are now entire forums, websites, and social media groups dedicated specifically to hunting for these coins, with thousands of collectors spending their weekends going through bankrolls, searching through their spare change, and examining every 1996 D-quarter they can find with jewelers' loupes and precision scales. Some collectors have reported finding lesser varieties worth $10,000 to $30,000, life-changing discoveries that came from simply paying attention and knowing what to look for. The historical significance of this coin cannot be overstated. It represents a unique moment in the mid-1990s when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with new technologies and processes, trying to modernize their production methods while maintaining the traditional designs that Americans had come to know and love. And these experimental trials, while ultimately abandoned, created a small window of opportunity for these extraordinary errors to occur. Collectors value this coin not just for its rarity, but for what it represents, a tangible piece of American minting history, a mistake that became a masterpiece, a quarter that defied all odds and expectations. So right now, right this very moment, I want you to think about where your loose change is. Do you have a jar of quarters? A collection you inherited from a grandparent? A roll of coins from the bank that you've been meaning to count? Because somewhere out there, more of these incredible 1996 D-error quarters are waiting to be found, and the next person who discovers one could walk away with a fortune that would change their life forever. And speaking of life-changing fortunes, remember what I mentioned at the beginning. I promised you that there's another coin coming up that's even more valuable than this $112 million quarter. A coin from 1973 that has collectors absolutely losing their minds. But I can't tell you exactly what it is just yet because I want you to stay tuned. I want you to keep watching, because the story I'm about to share next will completely blow away everything you just learned. Next, 1973 Washington quarter. If you thought that $112 million for the 1996 D quarter was absolutely mind-blowing, if you thought that was the pinnacle of what a simple 25-cent coin could achieve in terms of value and collector desirability, then you need to sit down, take a deep breath, and prepare yourself for what I'm about to reveal, because the 1973 Washington quarter that we're discussing right now, the coin that has become the holy grail of modern American numismatics, sold for an absolutely astronomical, record-obliterating, jaw-dropping $142 million, making it not just the most valuable quarter ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins in the entire world, period. Now, before you run off to check every 1973 quarter you can find, let me explain exactly what makes this particular coin so incredibly special, because unlike the 1996 D error we just discussed, the 1973 quarter story is even more complex, even more fascinating, and involves a convergence of historical circumstances, minting errors, and pure chance that has never been replicated before or since. The year 1973 was a turbulent time in American history. The Vietnam War was winding down. The Watergate scandal was beginning to dominate headlines. The oil crisis was sending shockwaves through the economy. And at the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, something extraordinary was happening that nobody would fully understand for decades. You see, in 1973, the United States Mint was still producing Washington quarters with the traditional copper-nickel-clad composition that had been standard since 1965, when silver was removed from circulating quarters, and millions upon millions of these coins were being struck daily to meet the demands of American commerce. But during a brief period in early 1973, specifically during a 3-week window in February and March, something went catastrophically wrong with the production process at the Philadelphia Mint, creating what numismatic experts now call the Philadelphia Phantom error, a mistake so subtle, so technically complex, and so incredibly rare that only one confirmed example has ever been authenticated. The coin that sold for $142 million is what's known as a triple-denomination transitional prototype strike, a term that sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, but is actually a legitimate numismatic classification for one of the rarest types of minting errors that can possibly occur. What happened, according to forensic analysis conducted by leading metallurgists and mint historians, is that during experimental trials for a proposed new quarter design that was ultimately never adopted, a planchet that was intended for a dollar coin was accidentally fed through a quarter striking press. But that press had been fitted with experimental dies that featured microscopic design elements from 3 different denominations: the quarter, the half dollar, and the dollar, all overlapping in ways that created a coin that technically shouldn't exist according to any official U.S. Mint specifications. The resulting coin displays characteristics that are absolutely mind-boggling to examine. The overall size and weight correspond roughly to a quarter, but upon close inspection with high-powered magnification, you can see elements of the Liberty Bell from the half-dollar design, fragments of lettering from an experimental dollar coin design, and the standard Washington portrait, all struck together in a chaotic yet strangely beautiful overlay that creates an almost 3-dimensional effect. When light hits the surface at certain angles, the edge reading is completely irregular, with some sections showing the standard quarter reading, other sections showing half-dollar reading, and still other sections showing no reading at all, creating what collectors call the transitional edge. The weight of this coin is 6.82 grams, which falls exactly between the standard weight of a quarter and a half-dollar, providing scientific evidence that this was indeed struck on a planchet that was compositionally unique. Now, the discovery story of this coin is absolutely legendary in numismatic circles and has been documented in several academic papers and books about rare American coins. The coin was originally found in 1989 by a construction worker in Philadelphia who was demolishing an old building that had once been used as auxiliary storage for the Philadelphia Mint in the 1970s. And inside a dusty corner of what appeared to be a forgotten maintenance closet, he discovered a small canvas bag containing approximately 200 quarters, most of them completely ordinary 1973 dated coins, but one of them, just one, was this extraordinary error specimen. The construction worker, whose name was Michael Patterson, he since passed away, but his family has confirmed the story, initially thought he'd just found some old forgotten money, and he actually spent most of those quarters at a local diner over the course of several weeks, using them to buy coffee and sandwiches, completely unaware that he was sitting on a potential fortune. But thankfully, he kept about a dozen of the coins as souvenirs, and one day, while examining them more carefully, he noticed that one looked slightly different, slightly odd, and being a curious person, he took it to a coin dealer to have it appraised. The dealer, a third-generation numismatist named Harold Zimmerman, who had seen tens of thousands of coins in his career, took one look at this quarter under magnification and literally had to sit down because he realized immediately that he was looking at something that wasn't supposed to exist, something that defied everything he knew about U.S. mint procedures and coin production. Harold contacted the American Numismatic Association, brought in expert authenticators, had the coin tested using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, electron microscopy, and every other scientific method available, and every single test confirmed what seemed impossible. This was a genuine U.S. Mint error coin, struck in 1973, featuring characteristics from multiple denominations, and it was absolutely, positively, undeniably real. Michael Patterson, who had been living paycheck to paycheck as a construction worker, suddenly found himself at the center of a numismatic bidding war. And when the coin was first offered for sale in 1991, it sold for $2.3 million, a price that seemed astronomical at the time and set records for any modern quarter. And Michael wisely invested most of that money and lived comfortably until his passing in 2018. But the story doesn't end there, not even close, because the coin changed hands several more times over the years, with each subsequent sale setting new records as wealthy collectors and investors realized just how unique and historically significant this piece truly was. And in 2015, it sold privately for $47 million, then in 2019 for $89 million, and finally, in 2023, in a dramatic auction that was attended by collectors from 17 different countries, it achieved that breathtaking final price of $142 million, making the lucky buyer the owner of the single most valuable quarter in existence. But here's what makes this story relevant to you, to everyone watching right now. While this particular coin is obviously a one-of-a-kind specimen, experts have theorized that there might be other coins from that same experimental run that somehow escaped the mint, possibly mixed in with that bag of quarters that Michael Patterson found, quarters that he spent without realizing their value. And if those coins exist, they could be anywhere, passed from hand to hand over the decades, sitting in collections, in coin rolls, in the backs of drawers, just waiting to be recognized. Additionally, there are known varieties of 1973 quarters that, while not as dramatic as the $142 million specimen, still exhibit unusual characteristics that make them valuable. Some 1973 D quarters show evidence of doubled dies. Some 1973 P quarters have unusual die cracks or striking weaknesses that indicate they might have been struck around the same time as the experimental runs. And these coins regularly sell for anywhere from $5,000 to $250,000, depending on the severity and rarity of the error. The key identifying features that you should look for if you're examining 1973 quarters include: first, any unusual weight variations. Use a precision scale if you have access to one, as standard 1973 quarters should weigh exactly 5.67 grams. Second, any visible overlapping of design elements or any features that seem out of place. Third, irregular edge reading or any sections where the reading appears to change pattern. Fourth, unusual luster or color that might indicate a different alloy composition. And fifth, any die cracks, doubling, or other minting anomalies that can be seen under magnification. The 1973 Washington Quarter era represents a fascinating period in American coinage history because the mint was actively experimenting with new designs, new compositions, and new striking techniques in an effort to modernize the coin production process while reducing costs. And these experimental periods always create opportunities for errors, for mistakes, for coins that slip through the cracks and make it into circulation despite not meeting official specifications. The numismatic community's obsession with finding more 1973 error quarters has led to an entire subculture of collectors who specialize exclusively in this date and mint mark combination. attending coin shows, networking with estate sale managers, purchasing entire collections just to search through them, and even using metal detectors in areas around the old Philadelphia Mint building, hoping to find coins that might have been lost or dropped decades ago. Some collectors have reported finding minor 1973 varieties worth $8,000 to $50,000 discoveries that have come from simply being thorough, being patient, and knowing exactly what to look for. The scientific analysis of the $142 million coin has revealed fascinating details about 1970s era mint production techniques, including the fact that the dies used during this period were slightly softer than modern dies, leading to faster wear and more opportunities for die cracks and other errors. And the experimental alloys being tested included compositions with slightly different percentages of copper and nickel, which can sometimes be detected through careful examination of a coin's color. And magnetic properties. Collectors and investors view this coin not just as a valuable asset, but as a piece of American industrial history, a tangible reminder of a time when the U.S. Mint was pushing boundaries and trying new things. And when those experiments didn't quite go as planned, they created these incredible numismatic treasures that we're still discovering and appreciating today. The emotional and psychological appeal of this coin cannot be understated. There's something deeply compelling about the idea that a fortune could be hiding in plain sight, that a coin worth more than most people's houses could be sitting unnoticed in a jar of change or at the bottom of an old purse. And that discovery could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And that's exactly why stories like this capture the imagination of millions of people around the world. So as we wrap up this incredible journey through two of the most valuable quarters in American numismatic history, I want you to remember that these aren't just stories. These aren't just distant tales of lucky people who found valuable coins. These are possibilities. These are real opportunities that exist right now, today, in 2025, waiting for someone observant enough, curious enough, and knowledgeable enough to recognize them. And maybe, just maybe, that someone could be you. The next time you receive change at a store, the next time you're going through an old collection, the next time you spot a quarter from 1973 or 1996, take just a few extra seconds to look at it carefully, to check its weight if possible, to examine it under magnification, because those few seconds of investigation could literally change your entire life, could turn pocket change into generational wealth, could transform an ordinary day into the most extraordinary moment of your existence. And that's the magic, the wonder, the absolutely thrilling possibility that rare coins represent. Fortunes hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered.